another super cool thing in CSS3. I wanted to say this for the latter part of this CSS3 section because it's a bit more advanced, but it's also super exciting. It's one of the more exciting parts of CSS3, and that is animations and transitions. And it is what it sounds like. So in CSS3, you can actually create animations and transitions, something that before you would have had to create in Flash or in JavaScript. And basically, the reason why it's so great is that because it's built into CSS3, it gives front-end developers, people who don't really understand how to use Flash, or people who don't use Flash because it's pointless in modern web technology, for websites and stuff like that. I don't mean to offend anyone who's super into Flash, because there is certainly a need for Flash in certain facets of the web, but not for general websites. And JavaScript, it's a bit more advanced, and we'll jump into JavaScript later in the course. But for now, it's really good to know how to use CSS3 animations, because you could create cool little tricks and animations in your websites without having to know anything extra for programming or add any extra weight to your site. You could simply just create cute little animations just to further enhance the user experience to create a fun website. And so I'm just going to show you now how to do those, how to create some simple animations that you'll literally know by the end of this lecture. You'll know how to create some cool animations, and the sky's the limit with how you want to do this, because you'll see as we go through this how simple it is once you kind of get the hang of it. So start off by creating an animations.html file. Same deal. Add the basic structure, the title. Make sure you got your normalize and your custom styles hooked in there, your IE conditional comments. Give the body the idea of animations. Add a level 1 heading, CSS3 animations and transitions, and give a div the ID of box. Because we already have those styles, you should already see that box hooked in there. We're going to start just by playing around with this box using animations. So jump into your CSS here, and I have a section here I called animations and transitions. And basically what we'll do here is I'll just show you how to just create a simple CSS3 animation. So the first thing you need to know, this goes a little bit outside of the box, no pun intended. When it comes to CSS, it's a little bit different. You're kind of adding a new level of programming knowledge here. It's not typically what you do in CSS, but I'm going to show you here. The first thing you need to know about animations is the keyframe rule, and that looks like this. You start off by typing keyframes with the @ symbol before it, so @keyframes. And so you treat this kind of like a CSS style rule, but it's not quite that. It's almost like you're setting up a little kind of script or function, so to speak, before you use your styles. And this is what you want your animation to do. And so the keyframes rule syntax looks like so. So I'm going to say @keyframes, and I'm just going to call this animation box. And so this is what the animation is called. And then you do the opening and closing curly braces like you would in CSS. And within here is where you put what the animation is going to do from beginning to end. So in the simplest form, you could say from, and then you have your curly braces here as well, and to, and you have your curly braces. So basically this means at 0% of the animation, this is what will happen. And at 100% of the animation, this is what will happen. You can also use a percentage based. You could say 0%, and then you could say 50%, and then you could have another one that's 100%, and so on and so forth, to make the animation do multiple steps. But we'll start with from and to. And so we're going to be making this box. Let's just do something very simple. Let's change the box background color from this red to black. And we'll do that by first saying from the background color. We're selecting the background color, and it's red. So we'll say the first step in the animation is to make sure the background color is red. So it will set the background color to red if it is not. You could say blue, and it will change the default color to blue, and it'll have a weird jump. So we're just going to make it consistent to what is already built into this style. So red to, and we want it to say background color black. So very simple. We want the box to go from red to black. Now, we need to tie this animation, because it's not going to do anything, as you can see. We need to tie it in. We need to associate it with that box. So all you got to do is just select your box. So we're going to say animations, and then box. So we're selecting the box within the animations element there. So here we've got it. And this is where we're going to hook the animation in there. So there are a set of properties that you need to know for animations. So you say animation name. And so that is just wanting to know what animation do you want to hook into here. And so this is the name, box. It could have been anything. You could have called it Jerry or Frank, but I called it box. And so box. So now that's essentially all I really need, but we also need one more to get this working properly. And we need animation duration. And that is how long you want the animation to be executed. So let's just say over 10 seconds. So 10s. I'm going to save that. And now you should see this animation start to work. And there it is. The animation went from red to black. Now, you can do this with multiple CSS properties. You can have it, let's do something else. Let's go the border radius. Let's say border radius. We want it to go from 40 pixels to border radius 100 pixels. So essentially turning it into a circle. And so we have the same thing hooked up here. I'm just going to save it. And now over 10 seconds, this box will turn into a circle. As you can see, is happening right before your very eyes. Using no Flash, no JavaScript, simply CSS3. And so you can add more than one CSS property combination here. You can add more styles. You could say, I also want the background color to go from red to black. So we go from a red kind of square to a black circle. Now, watch what happens. Whoops, I changed blue. I meant black. But you see the idea there. So now it will, over 10 seconds, go into a red, to a black circle. So there you go. And you don't have to have them all in one line here. You could do the same thing as you would in CSS. You can make it look like this if you really want to. That's okay too if you have multiple style rules or styles there. And so that's how you do that. Now there's other animation related properties that you could play around with. You could also use the animation delay property, which basically delays the animation by however long. So let's say 4 seconds, and then it will run after 4 seconds. So here, it's going to wait 4 seconds, and then the animation should start running. As you saw, it just jumped, and now it is transitioning, or it's animating. And so there's animation delay. There's also animation iteration count, which basically asks how many times you want this animation to be performed. So you could say 3 times before it totally stops. So I'm just going to make this animation run really, really short here so we don't have to wait too long just to see how it happens. So delay of 2 seconds, 4 second duration, and do it 3 times. So it should do this here. 1, 2, and then 3. And it should stop after this one. Should not repeat any more times. Now it goes back to the beginning frame, and then it doesn't go anymore. So that is the iteration count. The other thing you can do is have the animation reverse. You can have it be performed in reverse. So animation direction, and then you could say reverse. And so it will actually go from reverse. It will go from the circle, the black circle, to the first keyframe. So it went from the last keyframe to the first keyframe. And as you can see, it's doing this 3 times. Last keyframe to the first keyframe. So it's performing the animation in reverse. The other thing you could do in animation direction is animation direction alternate. And that will give you the animation to go back and forth. So from the first keyframe to the last keyframe, it should perform here in a sec. To the last keyframe, and then now it should perform in reverse. From black circle to the rounded red rectangle to the black circle, and then back again to finish up for the third time. So that's how that works. And yeah, you can play around with those. You could do position if you wanted to have the box move position on the screen. So let's just try something here. So we're going to say position relative, and I'm going to leave it like that. And then in here, I'm going to go say from position, from top 0 left 0 to top 100 pixels, left 100 pixels. So now this should actually move as well within the animation. And now it should technically reverse on the second round and then go back again. And so that is, you can use multiple properties there. So you got your iteration count and your direction. And one last thing you could play around here with your CSS3 animation is the timing function. So I'm going to add the animation timing function, and you can add basically how you want the animation to be performed. So if for those of you who know Flash or animation in general, when you transition between different positions in your keyframes, you could have it be linear. You can have the animation ease in and then out. You can have it ease out, and so on and so forth. And CSS3 lets you play around with that. So for example, let's see if we can show you timing function ease in out. So that should ease the animation in and out when it's performed here. So let's see how that looks. So you should see that it should be, it's kind of hard to see on this sort of animation. Maybe if I made the animation duration last a little bit longer. Let's see what happens. So it should start slow and then speed up a bit and slow down before the end of the animation. Now, keep in mind, this is just CSS3 performing this. It's not as powerful if you were using something like Flash or JavaScript or jQuery, but it is something. And, you can just have it be a linear animation, which will just perform very linear. It won't speed up or slow down. It will just stay one constant speed throughout the animation. And there is one other thing you can do here, and that is a shorthand. Instead of typing all of these properties out, you can simply say animation, start off with the name, so box, animation duration, 10 seconds, the timing function, let's say linear, the delay, 2 seconds, the iteration count, let's say 3, and the direction, alternate. So now that is the shorthand for all of this put together. If I just remove this, it should perform the same as it just did with all the properties listed out. So that is the shorthand version of the same thing. So you don't have to worry about typing everything out every single time. And so those are your animations. Now let's talk about transitions. Now transition is like an animation, but it's a bit simpler and it works a bit differently than an animation in the sense that it's not quite as robust. You don't have as many properties available to you. And it's for simple things like hovering over an element or just increasing just the user experience. So let me just show you how that works. So I'm going to add an element here, and I'm just going to say transition box. And I'm going to give this the ID of box 2. And I'm going to style that box very similar to the box here. Just going to say box 2, and I'm going to give it the background of blue and width of 200 pixels, height 200 pixels. And we have a transition box. Let's actually change the color so we can read that a little bit better. Color white. And so we have a transition box here. So now what I would like to do is when I hover over this element, I'm going to perform a simple transition, kind of like an animation. I'm going to make it move. I'm going to add some padding. I'm going to move the size. I'm going to move the position of it. So we'll play around with it here, and I'll show you how that works. So if I want to do something here, so let's just select the box 2 and then use the hover pseudo class. So when I hover over box 2, I'm going to say the background is going to change to red. The width will go to 300 pixels. The height will go to 300 pixels. The position, well, we got to set it to relative. We should probably set it to relative up here, actually. And then down here, we can change the top value to, let's say, negative 20 pixels and the left value to 30 pixels. So now if we were just to hover over this, it will do what these styles are. So just let me show you. It just jumps there. There is no transition. You see what I mean here? So we just are going from one state to the other. But what if I want to transition between the two? Well, that's where you use the CSS3 transition property. You can simply just write transition, and then you could say the property. So the values you need to add here is the property that you want to change and how long the duration is for. So you can say you want the width or the height or the top. So which property you want to transition, or all. So this will select all the properties and animate them or transition them over the course of, let's say, 4 seconds. So this is really all you need to put, the two required values, and then let's see what happens. So it kind of looked a little jumpy there. There we go. So because I selected all, it looks like it didn't choose the top and left to transition. It just transitioned the width and the height and the background. So if I were to say, let me just remove the top and left here, just so we can have a bit cleaner of an example. So I click on this and it changes the width and the height and the background over the course of a transition. You can also play with the curve, the timing curve in this one as well, kind of like when you did up here, you did the animation timing function. You can do the transition timing function. So transition timing function, and you could say ease in as well, or ease out, linear, so on and so forth. And that should do an ease in sort of, you could see it sped up near the end there. It was slow at the beginning, and then it sped up at the end there, at the end of the transition. So you could do that, and you can also keep that in a shorthand by saying all ease in 4 seconds, and that will work as well. The other thing you can do is you can have multiple values here. So you can say I want the width to transition over the course of 8 seconds, comma, and I want the height to transition over 2 seconds, and the background to transition over, let's go for something long, like 12 seconds. So now, if I hover over this, you'll see the height finished, and you could see that they all went at different times. Let's even make it an even longer one here. So the height will go the first, it will be the quickest, width will be the next, and then background will be after that. So let's see what that looks like. Height, width, finished, and the background is slowly finishing there to be completed around now. So you can see how that worked. You can change multiple values here to play around with transition. So those are your animations and your transitions in CSS3. There's so much more that you could do with this. This is a very, very basic example, and we'll play around that in the upcoming lectures where we're going to create cool little projects. But this was just the basic introduction of how you can use your animations and transitions.